BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show. I am Brad. He is John, and his full name is John Combest. Why do I give his full name? John, why would I give your full name? Is there any idea why I would do that?
Yeah, I was just listening to an ad from the Lance Drury Law Firm, and maybe you're going to send my name to my buddy Billy Long at the IRS. Who knows why you give my name, Brad? I don't know.
Well, because of the fact if you put a .com after it, that's your website, John. It's simple as that. Come on.
Oh, thank you for that, Brad. I am suffering from early onset dementia, so I'm glad that you reminded me of my name and my website.
That's the guy. You've heard him right there. His website, johncombest.com, Combest. He puts together this extensive list of all this important stuff you should know about that's going on in the state of Missouri. And I've got something we need to talk about, which is actually happening in Illinois, but I think it has some interesting aspects of the state of Missouri as well, too. Anyway, he does this every day of his life. Now, the interesting thing is he puts dozens of stuff on his site. Every day, there's dozens of stuff on there. Sometimes even as much as 50 or 60 different things that you should know about. Nothing fancy. Just go there, click on one of the links. It takes you to the story. But what we do is every morning we count down the top 3, and we bring in this guy right here. What's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And every once in a while, I make a venture as to what I think John is going to have in his top 3. And, John, can I give you an idea of what I think is going to be one of the top 3?
Oh, yeah, please do. I'd love to hear it.
A new bill introduced by Sam Graves where you have to register your toaster. And if you're in Franklin County, for every piece of toast you toast in your toaster, you have to pay a nickel to Dave Schatz. And if you want to get your money back at the end of the year, you can if you go and cut the grass at Dave Schatz' mansion, and he will give you back your nickel for all the pieces of toast that you toasted. So is that going to be in the top 3, John?
I knew you had installed spyware on my computer, Brad. Yes, it's clearly the story number 1, but I guess I got to bump it today. I'll find something else by the time we get to 7:15.
Okay, so let's go with number 3.
In third place,
a follow-up to a story that we haven't talked about a while because it hasn't been in the news. There's really been not much news coming from this entity, Brad. The St. Louis public school system. It was at the height of controversy around the end of the year. You had superintendents busted for what appeared to be shady spending receipts. You had a mayor's election that took a lot of the proverbial oxygen out of the room for people that were involved in city politics. But now, finally, St. Louis Public Schools returns to the headlines. Brad, I'm going to ask you a question. How surprised would you be if I told you that St. Louis Public Schools leadership missed a deadline? Would you be surprised by that?
Well, if it's a deadline to pay their credit cards, yes, I would be surprised at that because that's all important for those credit cards. But other deadlines,
yeah,
not so surprised. Right? You know what I'm saying?
But not so important for other deadlines.
Right,
so
right.
For example, every school district in the state of Missouri needs to, at the end of the year, submit an audit to the Missouri DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, just to show that everything is in ship-shop shape. Boy, that's a tongue twister. However, surprisingly, Brad, St. Louis Public Schools didn't manage to put an audit together, to put stuff together to submit to the state. I know, I'm as surprised as you are, Brad. However, later this week, the audit's supposed to wrap up. And the school board actually went out this time and got a professional firm, Reuben Brown. You've probably heard of them before. They're a big deal. And it looks like, Brad, as St. Louis Public School leadership put all their numbers together for 2024, they did a pretty decent job. They only forgot one thing. They forgot to do an inventory of all their unused buildings. I mean, that's a pretty minor detail. Why would you bother making a count of your buildings versus your unused buildings? But other than that minor little detail, Reuben Brown was able to scrape together apparently enough facts and receipts and data to be able to submit the audit to the state of Missouri only 4 months late, Brad. That's not too bad, right?
Only 4 months late?
Only 4 months late, Brad. If you went to the IRS and you said, hey, I know I was supposed to file my taxes in April, and I know I didn't file an extension, but hey, no harm, no foul, right? Like the IRS is just going to wave their hand and say, hey, Brad, you're an old guy that's paid taxes for a long time. No problem.
Well, I could just tell them I'm an immigrant from another country, and they go, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, then they would actually send you money, right, Brad?
Right. They would send me money and a credit card and place to live and the whole bit. Yeah,
now,
all that kind of stuff.
I'll point out real quick, too, that this is the second year in a row that the St. Louis Public Schools has failed to submit an audit on time to state and federal regulators. I know everybody's surprised by that, too. Now, here's a mystery question, Brad, that I don't know the answer to. And I pulled a Brad Hildebrand. And I went to an AI tool and asked the question, and AI didn't know the answer from Microsoft Copilot either. There's only 4 school districts statewide that haven't submitted their 2024 audit. One of them, of course, is St. Louis Public Schools. The other one, not surprisingly, is Jennings. I mean, any city that once housed Brad Hildebrand as a youth probably doesn't have its stuff together enough to submit an audit in 2025. Brad, do you have a venture as to where the other 2 districts might be? I actually don't know.
Someplace in NoCo?
I would guess maybe The View. But here's the other thing. I should point out, too, the story is brought to us by Blythe Bernard. I think if any of the districts had been in the St. Louis area, Blythe would have mentioned them, right? Because she mentions Jennings, and she says the Jennings superintendent, shockingly, could not be reached Tuesday for comment about where the heck their audit was. But I'm guessing if it was in the St. Louis region, Blythe would have probably mentioned it. Like if it was Hazelwood or if it was The View or one of those districts. Unless
it was Normandy. She wouldn't mention Normandy.
You don't think so?
That's where the campus is.
Oh. Well, no. That's not. We're not talking St. Louis Public Radio. We're talking Post Dispatch.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know on that. I mean, you know, the thing I thought you were going to talk about was the thing where they fired all the bus drivers. Did you see that story? I
did see that story, yeah. I don't have it on my website because it doesn't have to do with state politics, but I did see the headline. I didn't read it, though.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was they say they're hiring a new bus company called Zoom. I'm thinking to myself, okay, so the kids, they're just going to give them like a laptop or something like that, and they're just going to...
And then they can just drive around. It's
Right.
safer than showing up in much city schools.
Right.
And, Brad, I saw a headline last week that I didn't click on. Apparently, a school bus driver in Florissant hit a kid in the face. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. And, I mean, my first thought was, well, you know, if they're from Florissant, they probably deserve it, right? And you and I have a North County pass. We can say that. But I digress, Brad. You know, you mentioned Illinois at 7:03 a.m., and your guess had to do with Illinois. Story number 2 has to do with Illinois, but I don't know if it's the one that you're thinking of.
Okay, let's try it.
Up a notch to number 2.
We'll see what happens here.
A headline from Michelle Moons, or Michelle Munns, however you want to call her. Let's say Munns, because that rhymes with buns. 3rd measles case confirmed in Missouri as more info emerges about St. Louis case. Brad, is this the story you were thinking of?
No, it's not.
Okay. Well, it does involve Illinois because apparently the St. Louis Aquarium let somebody in who was visiting from southern Illinois. Gross. That should teach us a lesson. And someone with measles came in to the aquarium, and you would say, well, no big deal, right? Well, of course, there was a school there visiting at the time that this unvaccinated adult from southern Illinois toured the aquarium. The date was on April 30th, by the way. So this person came in at Union Station between 1 and 6 p.m., and this is according to the St. Louis Health Department. So now there are apparently, Brad, 3 cases of measles identified somewhere in the state of Missouri. Now, the state of Illinois is taking the lead on this case because this human being who had measles and came to the aquarium is actually from Illinois. So I guess the protocol is that Illinois will lead this. And then we also noted a couple weeks back, Brad, that a child visiting Branson was diagnosed with measles on April 18th. And as we talked about on the air, it appeared to be someone that had done international travel. Now, earlier I had assumed when we first talked about this that this was some kid going on vacation. But the way that this story is phrased, it would suggest to me that this was actually a foreigner that came in and visited Branson from some other country and brought his stinky, disgusting measles here from another country and then fled town. So it looks like, this is probably a lesson about letting people from other countries in and especially the other disgusting country known as Southern Illinois. But this underscores, Brad, that a potential major narrative for the summer, now that COVID's done and health reporters don't have anything interesting to talk about, they can talk about measles, and they can try to hopefully tie this to RFK and how terrible Donald Trump is, right?
Man, I tell you what, now it's interesting. I listened to Dr. Randy Tobler yesterday talk about this, and it was sort of interesting because he gave a fact that I'd never heard before. He said if you had your measles vaccination, I think he said sometimes like from 1963 to like 1969, that you might be susceptible to measles because the vaccine during those years was not as good. Have you ever heard this story before?
No, I haven't heard this.
Anyway, it's pretty interesting. And he was like, yeah, we're going to have, there's going to be a bunch of cases in St. Louis. And yeah, there are going to be some people that are going to get very sick, but it'll just sort of burn itself out. And he was sort of nonchalant about it. Like, yeah, it happens all the time. Like it was to him, it was like, I'm not trying to say that he sounded dismissive of it, but as a doctor, he sounded like, yeah, it's going to happen and just be prepared for it, but it's just going to run its course and it's going to go away. Sort of like what COVID happened. You know what I'm saying? Same kind of thing.
And is this, what doctor was this you said?
Randy Tobler. You know who Randy Tobler is?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, I thought that's what you said at first.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you said Dr. Eric Naputi. No. Because I would think maybe he would have some sort of elixir he could sell you for that.
Yeah, he would have a special blend that he would sell you. Okay. Is that it? Are we done with that one?
That's it for measles, Brad. I think we're safe.
Okay, number one.
The number one.
Some good news out of Washington, D.C. The story brought to us by Jacob Barker of the Post-Dispatch today. The headline, in victory for Josh Hawley, Trump names 4 to long vacant federal judgeships in Missouri. Now, usually getting federal judges appointed isn't a very controversial deal. In states where you have a Republican and a Democrat, it might involve some compromise. You don't want to have somebody who's quote unquote too extreme on either side. But Brad, as we continue to be pretty polarized, we have more and more states like Missouri where you have 2 Republican senators and in other states where you would have 2 Democrat senators. Now, Josh Hawley says that he had tried to work out a deal in the Biden administration to get a couple judges actually put on the bench to make sure that these seats did not stay vacant. However, reading this Jacob Barker piece, it looks like the deal fell apart. One theory could be that the Biden administration didn't want to give Josh Hawley a win and an election year for Josh Hawley. That's not in this piece, but that's my speculation. You remember a year ago, there were a bunch of patsies and simps and morons who suggested that Lucas Kunce might have a chance to beat Josh Hawley. I don't know if you've ever talked to any of those people, Brad, but they were pretending that Lucas Kunce has a real chance. He's an underdog. Anyway, back to reality. Josh Hawley succeeded in getting these 4 folks appointed to the bench, and their names are Zach Bluestone. I guess professionally he goes by Zachary. Joshua Devine, Maria Lanahan, and Christian Stevens. Now, I'm sure there'll be some nattering nabobs of negativity who point out that all 4 of these people are white, and 3 of them are white men and 1 white woman, and isn't that terrible? But hey, we finally got some vacant spots filled. There's a gentleman named, a legal scholar from the University of Richmond. His name is Carl Tobias. He's a professor at the University of Richmond School of Law, and he closely follows federal court nominations. And he says, quote, it's a tribute to probably Hawley, who prevailed on Trump to do Missouri's judges earlier. So in other words, as Jacob Barker notes, Trump is so consumed these days by tariffs and the budget and stuff like that, that nobody in any state expects their state of judges to get through, but Hawley made it happen for Missouri.
John, there's a story that sort of dovetails into this, which you briefly mentioned, which you probably don't know about, but I know about. a controversy that will rear its ugly head probably within the next couple of weeks. Remember the incident where Lucas Kunce and who was it? Was Eric Greitens with him? Where they shot the reporter? Remember that? They shot the reporter?
It was not Eric Greitens, but it was Lucas Kunce.
But it was some other dude. It was Lucas Kunce and some other dude. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was there with the kind of limp-wristed guy that claims to be a Republican. What's that guy's name? Oh, Kinzinger.
Oh, Adam Kinzinger. That's right. Okay. The story that I have been told by some anonymous sources is they hired an armorer to essentially, bring the guns and bring the ammunition and essentially do the safety checks and things like that. And it turns out that the armorer wasn't really an armorer, but was a campaign worker for Josh Hawley. So,
no way!
Oh,
what
yeah.
a controversy!
Oh,
Brad.
yeah. So, and he said, "Hey, let's get real close to these targets because there's no way we'll have any ricochets and there's no way any of the reporters could be in danger." And Lucas Kunce says, "I don't know. I mean, if we get that close to the, I'm a vet. If we get that close to the targets, there might be some kind of ricochet." "Oh, no, sir. Guarantee. Get within 5 feet of these targets and fire those AR-15 rounds, and there's no way a reporter's going to get shot." So they did it, and reporter got shot, and that screwed Lucas Kunce's chance. And what was interesting was they looked around, and the armorer was gone. He just disappeared.
Oh, it disappeared in the middle of the night.
Well, it was the middle of the day, but see, you didn't know about that story, did you?
Yeah,
John?
the middle of the day, Brad.
You didn't know about that story, did you?
I didn't hear it at all. I mean, it's a very slow way to get rid of. It's a very slow way to get rid of reporters one by one, right? And Brad, I just looked it up. Josh Hawley defeated Lucas Kunce by 14 points. And for people who weren't listening to us back in November, first of all, welcome, and thank you for joining us. We talked about the fact that Lucas Kunce's defeat margin was the biggest one this century. It was the biggest one in the 21st century. No Democrat has lost that badly and to a Republican since before the turn of the century. So good for Lucas Kunce. He spent a whole lot of money. There were a lot of people who did the whole underdog song and dance and pretended that he had a chance. And I was glad to see their legs cut out from under them, Brad. And to see that they were so soundly defeated by logic and common sense. It's the same kind of people that probably thought somebody could beat Ann Wagner.
I think Bill Eigel could, don't you?
I think Bill Eigel is going to make a fantastic candidate for St. Louis County executive. He's one of 3 fantastic candidates, right, Brad?
For St. Louis County?
For St. Charles County, Brad. Thank you for correcting me on that.
I think you'd be...
Mike Elam co-hosted Mark Reardon again yesterday. Did you know that, Brad?
Well, I don't know if you know this or not. It's now the Brad Young and Mike Elam show with occasional guest host Mark Reardon. That's the way
I like that. Brad Young is great, too. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's very good. I've talked to him a couple times. Super nice guy and attorney. By the way, one little story here for our Catholic listeners. This is going to be sort of interesting. We're into the deal where they're choosing the Pope and they have the white smoke and the black smoke. This year they have a third color smoke that people are watching out for. You know what that color is?
Is it rainbow?
No, it's orange. So...
Oh, is that for Donald Trump?
Yes.
Oh, because he's... what I didn't listen to yesterday, but apparently our friend John Lamping was on the Mark Cox morning show yesterday. And just from reading Mark Cox's headlines or whoever does the audio recaps for Mark Cox, they're really good. He said that John Lamping wasn't too happy about the whole, Trump putting himself as the Pope.
Well, John's been a little bit testy ever since he lost his job at the Cardinals. And back in
one of my favorite things is your insistence on calling him Mark Lamping. That's one of my favorite things. It's right up there with Ricky Schroeder, Brad.
Back in the day when he was running the Cardinals, and the Cardinals filled the stands and had good players on the field. Now they don't fill the stands, and they have not so good players on the field. And he moved out to Augusta. Don't you think he'd move like in one of those apartments, like in a ballpark village, where he could just look out the window and watch the game? Don't you think? But instead,
you would think so, Brad. But then again, Who wouldn't want to be that close to Klondike Park?
That's right, because he's got to walk his dog in Klondike Park. And the park that I haven't been through there in a while, John, but there's a running joke that John and I have that Mark Lamping complained about.
A.K.A. John Lamping.
John Lamping complained about, see, now you got me going. He complained about the fact that I said that Klondike Park should be shut down because nobody goes there. So I have gone there, 3 or 4 times and driven through the park. It's like a big one-way drive. You go in, you go to the right, and great big circle, you come out the other side. And what was the one time I went through? There were 4 people in the entire park.
Yeah, and you took a time-lapse video as well, Brad.
It was a beautiful, sunshiny October day. And, that same day there were probably thousands of people in Forest Park and places like that. But there were 4 people in Klondike Park. But yet, we have to have that Klondike Park. Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be back, and we will start off with, I'm going to play an audio clip to start off number 2, the B block. And I want John, and this is, like I said, I'll preface this by saying this is not Missouri. This is Southern Illinois, but I think it's sort of interesting because I didn't know about this, but John probably did.